Hey,
Hello.
good
Oh, it's
morning, good evening.
gotta zoom up a little bit. Good question. Good evening for me. Good
Yep,
morning to you.
yeah.
Are
You
you
look,
awake?
I'm awake. The
Good.
the coffee, this is like number two, so we're mm-hmm.
I'm on caffeine free though because
Oh,
I have to go to bed after this and that will be
yeah.
bad.
No, that
The
wouldn't
f-
be. I mean, a scotch, I don't know if what your
yeah, no, that's a good idea. I didn't think about that. I didn't know if that
choice.
would it would get too wild that way.
Oh, well, it could be okay. A
Yeah.
little, in this industry, we're okay with that.
Well, I don't want to fall out of the chair either.
That
So,
would not be a good thing because someone might actually grab that just at the moment. So
yeah,
good,
embarrassing.
good, good call. Good call. How's everything going over there?
It's going great. It's hot,
It is.
Bangkok weather. It's cooling down now. I think we're getting into it rained for the first time 2 days ago. First time probably this whole year.
Oh wow,
So we're about to transition into the less hot season. So yeah, things are good. Keeping
oh that's
busy,
awesome.
trying to stay
Positive.
occupied. Yeah,
Yeah,
positive, occupied, all those things.
all those things. Are you
How,
guys are in house? You guys are still like
yeah,
quarantined in bubble?
we've pretty much been in the house, I think, for almost about a month now, like
Oh wow.
like 4 solid weeks. I mean, we're allowed to go outside, but um, we're just avoiding it. Like we'll go to the grocery store, we'll walk
Yeah,
the dog on our block.
yeah.
That's it. No
Oh,
friends, no delivery. Just we're cooking a lot.
that's
That's good.
good.
So
Anything fun?
yeah, I realized that you can get these spice packets at the grocery store for like every kind of Thai curry. So now I've made every kind of Thai curry and they're really good.
Oh,
I'm
that's awesome.
surprised, veggies, coconut milk, uh,
Ooh,
and the pack. It's good. So
that sounds
we're eating a
awesome.
lot of good food lately. So yeah, actually, silver lining. Before we were only eating delivery. So
Yeah, you probably say. I mean, you there's a balance. I mean, cooking costs a lot too, but you've probably saved a lot by learning how to cook all these things now, and
yeah,
you're just like, oh, okay, this is easy. Not as
now
not as painful.
we're figuring out where the cheap produce is, and that changes everything.
Oh
Because
yeah.
like you here, if you go to the right place, you can get like your entire bag of produce for the same price as like a candy bar here. Like I can buy a candy bar and a whole bag of produce at the same time and they're the same price. So it's like, wow, okay, we should stop going to the grocery store for all that stuff. So we're slowly learning new lessons inside of COVID-19 times.
Hey, I think everyone's trying to find like a new pattern and what's going to help them survive this
And so
situation.
you're in Florida, right?
I'm in Florida, yeah. So
So,
we're having like it's kind of strange. Like we can get most things, but there's a like fresh fresh produce for where we are, it's getting harder. Like I went
mm,
and tried to get a few things the other day and nothing was like I brought a bunch of stuff home and within 2 days everything just went bad. Like it just
oh,
quickly. And I was just really surprised by it. Things just aren't fresh. We're having some issues with, quality control. So frozen vegetables, frozen fruit, trying to buy what we can, but also like trying to get creative with cooking because we just end up eating the same thing and like the basics, and then we're getting bored with eating the basics.
yeah,
So the days that we end up wanting to like go out to dinner and having a night where we don't have to cook
yeah.
isn't an option. So we're like, oh, okay, we got to find something else to do.
Yeah, we actually we did have one respite from cooking the other day. Like we had to go to the bank for whatever reason, and we are like, well, the Lebanese place is right here. We could get takeaway on the way home, and we were both just like, okay, yeah, let's do that. So that
Oh,
was our one like special outing.
yeah.
So I don't know, yeah.
I just go for drives. Like I'll get in the car and I'm like, all right, I got my mask on, I got my gloves on, I look, but you just have to
Well,
get
and
out of the house.
it's pretty lucky for you that you got out of New York, right? Because New York is like the craziest place right now, as far as I'm
Yeah,
seeing on the news.
yeah.
And my friends who live in the five boroughs are just like, this is like a post-apocalyptic movie in
Yeah.
some ways. Maybe
Yeah.
not totally on the street, but like,
It's it's scary because a lot of my really close friends are either, they're not in the city, they're outside the city. The ones that are in the city, they're they're trying to stick to a normal life as much as they can. Like they're riding their bikes, but they're going in areas that are pretty quiet, like the Lower East Side and the West Village.
hmm
They're staying to areas that are not as populated. Some of my friends work in the school system, so
yeah,
when things were all starting to like shake up, I was hearing about it earlier than like the news broke because they were texting me and they were telling me, "Hey, by the way, we're closing. Like our school's
wow,
done. Like and then we're learning, we're doing things from home." And before like any of like the shutdowns were happening, they were hearing about them because they have like intersystems.
hmm
So by March, I would say by March 10th, I was packed up and like getting out the
okay. So,
door.
so you pretty much knew as soon as you heard that, like, I need to
Yeah.
get out of here.
Yeah.
Wow. And
I mean,
so,
especially since like they were telling me that like parents were already pulling kids out of school. Like it was
okay, people knew something crazy
people
was going to
knew.
happen. I guess if
Yeah.
you live in New York, you have to be like extra sensitive compared to, extra sensitive of your environment because it's like every post-apocalyptic movie takes place in New York City, right? Like
Yeah.
it's for a reason. Like that's the place where it's going to be crazy and super, condensed and congested and everything like that. So, well, glad you're not there because yeah, I don't
Yeah.
envy anybody who's there right now. I
No,
mean,
I don't either.
it's surprising because like in my mind, Bangkok and New York City are so similar in terms of like, being that big city, that capital place. But like actually it's nothing like what's happening there is not at all happening here. Like it's totally peaceful here. There's nothing crazy going on. It's just people chilling in the house and most people, like a lot of people have left the city to go, up
Yeah.
country and stuff. So,
I think,
yeah,
I think the only thing that's getting a little concerning is like I found out that like the food store that's in my building, that's like right below my building, got vandalized. The windows were
no,
shattered. There was like negative graffiti. I think some people are just, they're not in it. So they're finding, and nothing was stolen. That was the thing. Like when the windows were broken, the cops were like, okay, we need to go in. We need to figure out what was stolen. And nothing was stolen. It was just the windows were vandalized. So it
oh,
wasn't like people needed food. It wasn't like there was a desperate act. It was just vandalism, which
okay,
was to me interesting.
yeah.
But let's get started.
Yeah, totally, totally. Let's keep it on a lighter note than the
Yeah.
apocalypse.
So Justin, why don't you introduce yourself um, to my community?
Okay.
You do a lot of amazing things, and you actually have like your fingers in a lot of different aspects within the artisan gem cutting world and lapidary world. So
Thank
why
you.
don't you talk about kind of how you got started, and then what you're currently doing, and how those things have connected, and kind of
Yeah.
and something about you.
Okay. Okay. That's a lot. I'll try and say all those things in one. Okay. So I'm Justin Prim. First of all, I'm from America, but I live in Bangkok now. I grew up in Chicago, and as you said, I have my fingers in a lot of stuff. But my number one thing is gem cutting. So I've been a gem cutter now for like more than 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I started doing that outing. I was living in San Francisco for a good while,
Oh,
right
cool.
before I moved here, like 4+ years. I was out there, and that's how I got into gem cutting. There was, I don't know, a friend took me to a gem show I'd never ever seen. I think I was like 28 or 29 at this point, and I had somehow never seen. I didn't even know there was such thing as a gem trade. Like I'd never seen it,
Yeah.
never thought about it. Didn't come from a jewelry family or anything. Just like went to a gem show in California, like in the Bay Area,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Whoa, what is this?" And the funny thing that really hooked me was, um, I really got this sense of like a medieval trading village. Like if you, because that's kind of my other passion, like my geeky passion is like medieval
Yeah.
and Renaissance stuff. And so I already had that going on in my mind, and so I had this sort of idea of, you know, romanticized old-fashioned lifestyle, And then you come to
Oh,
the
cool.
gem trade and you're like, oh man, you've got like all these different traders coming here. They're bartering, they're
Yeah.
buying and selling, and buying and selling inside of the show too. You can buy something in the show and go sell it somewhere else. And it was just like, well, what's going on here? And then
Yeah.
the gems, and then
Yeah.
as soon as I saw cut stones, I'm not really sure why, but as soon as I saw cut stones, I was like, how do they do that? Like how can you put all these little facets on a tiny little thing? They're so small and they're so perfect.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a good
and so
point.
that, yeah, and yeah, even now sometimes I'm thinking, wow, how do we do this? Even though I do it all the time, but when you take a step back and you look at it and you're like, oh, it's pretty amazing that you can make it look so finished.
Yeah.
I mean, it's finished, but
It's finished.
yeah. But so I joined a club, a local club. It's like kind of the American way of becoming a gem cutter. You join the lapidary club. There ended up being one in my neighborhood in San Francisco. So I'm like
That's awesome.
super lucky. It was a bike ride away. So I would ride my bike 5 minutes a day, 5 minutes to there, 2 times a day.
Oh, wow.
And so I'd wake up in the morning, I'd go cut stones, I'd go to work, and then in the evenings, on the certain days, I'd cut again. So I got obsessed for like 2 years, just cutting and cutting and cutting.
Oh,
And then I
cool.
was like, I want to do faceting. I want to get it. I was only doing cabs at first because that's all they let you do at the beginning. So then finally I got onto the list for the cutting class, and that takes 2 years. The cutting class list is 2 years long. So I was
In
doing
San
cabs.
Francisco.
Yeah, and because it's free,
Wow.
everything's free,
Oh,
but
that's cool. I
but
didn't know
the cost is time. You have to
that.
go
Yeah.
and wait and pay your dues and everything like that. So I got really into, as soon as I took one class, like I already knew like this was going to be for me, but I didn't want to buy the machine until I knew hands
Yeah.
on. So I tried it, and after one class, I bought a machine on eBay. I came back to the second class. I finished the first half of the stone, like just the bottom, and I
Yep.
was like, okay, okay, teacher, give my seat to somebody else. I don't need to come here anymore. Like I got my own machine. I'm taking the stone home. I'll finish it there. Like I'm good because it was too
Oh,
slow.
wow.
It's like one day a week. The faceting class was only one day a week for 3 hours. So I was like, I can't. I'm ready. I was like ready to go. I was like, let's do
You're
it. And
pumped.
and yeah, I was pumped. And I was really, I'd already waited 2 years. I wasn't trying to wait on this guy's whole, slow schedule. So it didn't matter though. He showed me how to use the machine, how to
Yeah.
read the diagram. That's all I needed. And from there things just escalated. Like, I was already 2 years into my sort of gem relationship at that point. So I was already at the point where I was starting to think about going to gemology school because I sort of knew that I I knew about cutting, but I had no idea about stones.
Right.
And so like, I was watching your talk this morning. For me, it was this morning with Laura. And
Not very many hours ago.
no. And it was funny because when I was talking to her in Tucson, we were kind of talking about, were you a gemologist first?
Yeah.
And for everybody else that we were talking to, everybody started in gemology and went into cutting. And for me, I was a cutter who didn't know anything about gemology.
And nearly the other way.
Yeah, and it's like really funny when you're in that kind of a weird circle of people because it's like miners and stuff, like
Yeah.
old timey miners, and you'd be
Yeah.
like, "What is this stone?" And they're like, "That's jade," and you're like, "How do you know?" And they're like, "It feels like jade,"
It
just
feels
like
like jade.
some kind of mystical sense that you
Yeah.
can't
It
explain.
smells like it. It feels like it.
Yeah,
It tastes
exactly.
like it.
Like, oh yeah, this is a, yeah, this is a,
Yeah.
no, this is a different kind of jade.
They're like, this is
It's got
Jasper.
a
And you're
different
just like,
flavor.
what?
Yeah, yeah. And so in my mind at that time, I had, it was just like everything was the same. Like okay, a green stone, a brown stone, a blue stone.
There
I
it
don't know
was.
what this stuff means. I look on YouTube or whatever, but
It's
then I was like,
hard.
oh,
It's
yeah,
hard. I understand that. I get that.
it's a, I knew that if I knew that I had the discipline to like teach myself all that stuff, but really I didn't want to. I
Hmm.
wanted to go have an adventure and do gemology school and meet people and try to get a job and all that stuff. So came out to Bangkok. That seemed like the thing to do for me was go to Bangkok because
That's
I couldn't
awesome.
afford California or New York,
Yeah.
cost of living
Don't
or
do that.
tuition.
Don't do
And
that.
I'd been to Bangkok once before, and I knew that it was the colored stone hub of the world. So I was like, well, why wouldn't I go there? I love to
Yeah.
travel. I love to do strange things. So like, let's do that. And basically, I got here and I never went home. I graduated from school. I got connected with, like I didn't have a job for a while, but then eventually I got a job as a gemology teacher. And then later
Hmm.
on, I got an offer to help start this school as the gem cutting teacher, which is what I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so yeah, now, amongst other things, now we started this school. So it's been about 2 years, a little
Awesome.
bit over 2 years since I joined that project. And the school's been going, just sort of like great
Yeah.
until February. We went to Tucson, everything was looking cool, came back a week later, they're like, okay, we're closing the school. It's like, oh man, are you
I know,
serious?
because you and I were having all these conversations,
Yeah, like you're
and
supposed to be here right now.
I know. And it's funny because I was talking to somebody when we were in Tucson. I got really excited. I was like, I think I have this opportunity, and they were getting real. She's like one of my really good friends. She was getting excited for me, and she texted me. I think it was yesterday, and she goes, "Aren't you supposed to be in Bangkok right now?" And I was like, don't talk to me. I was like, I
Yeah,
can't do this right now,
it's okay.
but
It's
we'll figure it out.
we're gonna open back up whenever it's time, when
Yeah,
everybody else is ready to come on out here. So, because even our whole goal for this year was going to be like towards China. Like
yeah.
that was like a good idea. We had a Chinese language class in December for the first time, and it was really good.
Oh, cool.
And we were like, yeah, we're gonna go after China this year. It's gonna be awesome. They're so close.
Yeah,
Because originally our intention was like Europe and America. And
yeah,
what we realized over 2 years was like America is really, it's too far away. Like we've had just a couple of people out of all
yeah,
of our, we had a lot of students, but like America, we were just realizing we're not, either we're not big enough or the class isn't long enough to justify flying out, or one thing or the other, or whatever it is. But we have other ideas about what to do with America now. But so we're like, okay, China, we're so close to
yeah.
China. It's a 2 hour flight. There's a lot of Chinese people that are already coming into Bangkok for gemology school, and then it all went down. So, but whatever. Whenever it opens back up again, we're already starting to see that China's ready to go. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know
yeah.
if you saw that headline the other day, like the Hermes store made like $1.2 million on the first day of opening in China, because like everybody's been sitting there for a month and they want to buy something. So I guess they got handbags. So hopefully
So
they're going to come and get gemology education.
and
I
then
want to,
buy our gemstones, please. Just,
yeah. Oh
take that
yeah,
money and put it
exactly.
into our industry.
Yeah.
That's actually, you
I,
bring up a great point, because um, I know a few people who've taken your class, and every single person I've talked to is like, "Oh my God, you've got to do it. Justin's amazing. Justin's amazing." And before I
thank
had
you.
the opportunity to meet you, everyone just raved about the class. They were like, "Oh, he made
Thank
it so
you.
simple. It was so easy. It was put in such like layman's terms that like even me, who's not a gemologist, or not in the like the stone world, either they're traders or they're vendors and they're not cutters, they were like, I love this. This is amazing." And Jeremy from
Oh
Color
yeah.
Source was the first person
Yeah.
who was like,
Yeah, he was in our
you,
first class actually.
"Oh, the first one?
First, yeah.
Oh
He was
wow."
like one of our first, yeah, in our first batch of students. So yeah, I didn't even know him
He
before that.
he came back and he was so excited. He was like, "Erin, you got to do this." And I was like,
Oh, I didn't
"Okay."
even know you knew him.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
I'm
funny.
actually, his mom's one of my best friends.
Okay. I want to give a shout out to Jessica because I see one of our other students is on here right now, Jessica Silly. So,
Hey.
uh, she and I had a really funny class because she wanted to do the class right before a trade show, and we were like, okay, but there's nobody else. It's just going to be one-on-one, and she was like, okay. And so we had a 2 week long one-on-one class. It went well, but it's like it's hardcore though because it's like this, you and me sitting right here face to face for 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
then me going, so she did great because that's more pressure than anyone ever has to have because usually they can talk to the other students, and then it was just me and her. So that was funny, but I wanted to say hey.
She probably stopped. She probably learned a lot.
Yeah, it
I
was
was the
fun.
luckiest ever. Yeah, you really were. I mean, if it was one on one for me, I'd be like, okay, let's like, let's go on to some serious stuff by like day 4.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, Thailand's on my bucket list. I'm just seeing these comments as they go. So,
Yeah,
and Thailand should be on everyone's bucket list, especially in the gem trade. This is one of the things we wanted to talk about today
yeah,
anyway, but Thailand, it's crucial. Some people some people live here and they don't even know that Thailand is the center. Like sometimes I meet people that live
Yeah.
here who aren't in this industry at all, you know, just randomly. And they're like, oh,
Yeah.
what do you do here? You know, because there's a lot of expats here. There's a lot of teachers and just retired people,
Yeah.
like
That's
Americans and
true.
Australians and stuff. And sometimes I'll just meet somebody at a party and they're like, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I teach gemstone cutting. And they're like,
Huh?
what? I was like, yeah, Thailand, where, you know, Bangkok is the
Yep.
center of the colored stone trade. Like there's people from every country here doing this thing, you know, and this is what we do. So, um, yeah,
It
I'm,
is. It's amazing because I don't think people realize how important Bangkok is for trading, for cutting. It's truly the hub. So many of
yeah,
the colored stones that we see have passed in some way through Bangkok. And
yeah,
I don't think people realize how important that part of the world is to our trade. Um, and taking care of it and supporting it is to me is incredibly important, and sharing that, because you walk through Tucson, you walk through Vegas, you walk through, most of these shows, and everybody is talking about the Hong Kong show or the Bangkok show. And it's not just they say it's a different world because it's the beginning of that trading for what's going to happen. It's the
yeah,
beginning of what trends we'll see. And the US has always been a little delayed in what we see. I mean, from trends of cutting to trends for color, and that's okay. But
and new
and new
production always comes
production.
here first.
So you
But
guys get to get your hands in things
yeah,
before we do, and that's why I want to get over there, because
yeah,
it's
and
important to see what's happening.
it's like the deeper you are in this community, because the funny thing is, you know, at this point now, well, I didn't say this before. I want to throw this as a side thing in because it
Yeah.
puts everything else in the context. But so when we started the school, I also started this faceting history book project. So I'm writing this book about the history of gemstone cutting.
Hmm.
And so in the last 2 years, I've been traveling to all these different gemstone trading hubs and cutting hubs all over the world, Asia, Europe, America. And so what I just wanted to say though was, it's crazy to me when I go to other cities, like for instance, New York. You know,
Hmm.
there's a neighborhood for gemstones, but it's very small. In my opinion, it's very small. You go to London,
It's a street. It's a
it's a
street.
street, and it's like a little bit. I think it's a little bit bigger than the New York scene, but not
Yeah.
much. You go
Oh,
to
in
Paris,
San Francisco or in New York? I thought you
no,
were said New York.
no, yeah, to London, New
Oh,
York to
to
London.
London.
Yeah, London is like two streets. New York's like one street. Paris is like a square, like a plaza, right?
Okay.
And
Yep.
but then you go to Bangkok and it's like, no, we have a skyscraper. It's 58 stories of gym traders, plus the neighborhood around it is all gym trade. It's like it's so on another level than any other place. And it's hard to believe that people don't know that it exists. I mean, I
Yeah.
didn't either
No,
until I really was here. But it's vast. You know, like when you go to the
it's
Hong
awesome.
Kong show, you go to the sometimes you go to the Bangkok show, and it's like it's just everybody from this one building, kind of. You know, it's like we're all in the same
Yeah.
office building. So it's huge. Anyone who's thinking about coming out here should. And if you're thinking about coming out here, you should definitely check out our school because that's a good excuse. Anyway,
Definitely.
um, but yeah,
Definitely.
one thing I really wanted to know from you.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I just told my little story. What's your story? We talked a bit in Tucson, but I didn't get how you got into the trade, and I'm curious.
So I'll make it short and sweet as I can. So I graduated from Savannah College of Art and Design and jewelry design. And when I graduated, the economy wasn't that great. So I decided that I was going to go to GIA, because while I was in school, kind of what you had said in the beginning, we weren't taught anything gemology. We weren't taught gemstones. The stones that we had access to was very, very limited. Um, it sounds absolutely ridiculous to say this, but I didn't realize all my options. I knew blue sapphire, I knew ruby, I knew opal, I knew amethyst and citrine and
Okay.
aquamarine and peridot. I knew basics.
Yeah.
And so when I graduated, I had one of my very first jobs was designing. And I said to myself, I was like, I don't how am I supposed to design if I don't know the materials that I could be working with? Because I'm seeing what Cartier and what Van Cleef are using, and I'm like, I don't even know what those are, but I want to know.
Yeah.
So right away, I went to GIA, and from there, I stayed on the corporate side. So I was an assistant designer for Lexus Guitar. Then a few years into that, I became the head stone buyer for Judith Ripka and
Okay.
managed product development and production with them. And when I was there, my world of gemology like really opened up because I was given the funds and I was given the access to these suites of necklaces of these stones that were outrageous. And I was given the tools to meet these people who were cutting incredible stones that I hadn't seen before working in the costume world.
Mm.
So after doing that, I moved on and I worked for David Yurman, and I was an engineer with David Yurman.
Okay.
But because I had this gemology background, I was a GG. Every job I had, I was the stone buyer. I was always taken into these big meetings to buy suites because I was always one of the few people that had this manufacturing, production, engineering experience. And then I was also a gemologist.
Okay.
And gemology came second for me. So kind of like what you said, where most cutters are gemologists first and then they became cutters. There's not very many designers, more now, but when I did it, there were very few designers, very few people in production and manufacturing that had gemology. So when I did it, everyone in my class at GIA was from a family store. So I was the only one that was working
Yeah.
corporate. I was the only one that was, talking with factories, production, manufacturing, all that stuff. So to me, it opened up my world of the materials I could use, but then it also affected how I was designing because everything I was thinking about designing and everything I wanted to design, I was thinking about the hardness and the stabilities and those
Mm.
fractures and how it would last, and does it have longevity. So it affected the way I designed, but it also gave me this entire kind of this open book of saying, okay, here's what you believed gemstones were, here now are all of your options.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful because I was able to bring stones and materials to companies that they didn't realize that they could use, that were safe enough to use, or
Okay.
that were cost correctly for our budget or what we needed
Yeah.
to produce. So
That's
um,
exciting.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
about 2 years ago, I started GemologyGeek, and it was really just supposed to be a place. It was really supposed to be a community of a bunch of people learning about gemstones. Because while I was working, I had friends who always loved stones, and they would come into my apartment and they would see like my little specimens that I picked up here and there, and they were fascinated. But I realized the rest of the world didn't know what we were seeing. They didn't know the size of things. They didn't realize, how important cuts are and color. And the biggest thing is they didn't realize that sapphires come in literally every color, or
Yeah.
garnets come in a massive range of
Yeah.
colors.
Yeah.
They they think they've seen it all, but they haven't even broken the surface.
Yeah.
So I started it just as a way of connecting the gemstone people to the designers and the designers to the gemstone people. And what ended up happening is this community of individuals from every aspect of the industry, from miners to the vendors to the cutters to, the artisans, back to the collectors. They connected with each other and they were talking to each other. And I was able to kind of watch how this transformed, which was really cool to see. And that
Yeah.
wasn't my intention. My intention was to just educate people in a really ridiculous, funny, lighthearted way, because I was always a geek. I was like, all right, you know what? This is it's just going to be as ridiculous as it is, and it's become something larger than I realized, and it's become a community of people. That's why I'm doing all these lives with people that are in my community because
Yeah.
this is a great time. This is a great use of our time to connect each other, to figure out what each of us are doing and seeing how, I can help you, how you can help me, and how someone might be jumping on here and going, I've always wanted to learn how to cut, but there's no cutting school, but I have the funds. Now I'm going to go to Bangkok. Like,
Yeah.
these
Yeah,
are
exactly.
these are the opportunities, and this is how we connect. And our industry has always been about trade of education, trade of language, trade of gemstones. It's always been about sharing of information. So it's it was really cool. Wasn't the intention, and it's what happened, and I'm really excited for
Yeah.
what happened. It
It's
was one
kind
of
of
those
funny how
things.
that works out, right?
Yeah, it was one of those things that just took a life of its own. But
So
yeah,
is this a business now, or is this still
yeah.
just a social media
No,
project?
it's a business. So I broker stones for everybody from, you know, random people who just like gemstones to collectors. I source lots and material for designers,
Hmm.
for jewelry stores. I mean, whatever people are looking for, they can contact me, and because of who's in my network, I can put pieces together. If people want things recut, I get things recut for them.
Yeah.
And then part of the business is I do a lot of custom. So clients will contact me about the stones that I have, and then sometimes they have somebody that they already work with, and I go, hey, great, here's a stone. I
Yeah.
can't wait to see what you do. Show me pictures, or they'll hire me to do the custom. And I've got people that can do everything from enameling to micropave and everything in
Cool.
between. Yeah.
And all this is happening in New York City,
Most of my
I
like
mean,
my
production
clients are all
wise.
over the place. I would say my clients are all over the place. Australia, South America, um, like all over the US, and then in other countries. A lot of my custom comes from the United States.
Hmm.
Most of my production I do in New York because I want to keep the people that I contact with and my private jewelers. I want to keep their business going. And it's there's certain there's certain aspects of this industry that are lost trades. I mean, there's very few
Yeah.
people that are coming in that really know how to micropave. There's I only know a handful of people who know how to do French enamel, true French enamel. So if I can support those people and I can help pay, their bill one more month, I'm going to do it. You
Yeah,
know,
I feel you. I mean, gem cutting is the same story.
yeah,
There's I don't know about New York, but even in Bangkok, there's a huge problem right now, or there's going to be a huge problem where there's no new gem cutters. I mean, this is the story of the whole world as I've been going around. There's no young gem cutters. I mean, it's really rare to find somebody under 40 who who is going to be a pro, at some point, or is apprenticing to be a pro. It's super rare.
yeah.
And yeah, I think in the jewelry side of it, the manufacturing side of it as well.
Nolan just
It's a
popped
crazy
on
world.
talking about. Do you know Nolan?
Yeah, yeah.
Nolan, hey Nolan.
I
He's
got
a
a lap from Nolan
he's a crazy
in
cutter. Like
yeah.
awesome.
He sold me this one. This was from Nolan, and it's
See,
working well.
trade. It's how we help each other out. But you're right. There's Instagram makes you think that there's like 5,000 people that are doing all these things, and there are probably, I would say, 15 younger in like 40 and under that are cutting, trying to learn how to cut or trying to master it at this point.
Yeah, I saw a couple things pop up in the question or whatever as we're going. Um, First of all, I want
Yeah.
to say hi to Risha. Risha was here a second ago and was asking
Yep.
about, are you going to talk about diamonds in your book? No, it's just going to be colored stones. But the question that just popped up, do you think there's enough market share for more gem cutters? Definitely yes. This is like my
Yeah.
mission right now. I went into London last year. I got a grant to do a research project last year with these old, like 75-year-old cutters who are still using, like hand crank, no electricity jam peg machines as if it
Yeah.
was 1880. Like they haven't changed their techniques at all. And so while I was there for 2 months, and while I was there, I met every single gem cutter in Hatton Garden, which is like six.
Yeah.
And really it's like two, the actual people who are doing it day in and day out. It's like two companies of three people total. So all of
Wow.
London is getting their stones cut by like three or four guys. Um, and so everybody that I talk to, not the old guys, because the old guys are just like, they're going to retire. They don't really care. But like the other guy that I was talking to, I was like, how's business? What is it like in London? Because he's from Sri Lanka. And
Oh,
he
cool.
was like, I have so much work. I can't keep up with it. I need to hire somebody, but there's no one in the entire UK that I can hire because there are no trained gem cutters here. And I don't have time to train somebody else. And so I want to import someone that I know from
Yeah.
Sri Lanka, but like the UK is super, super strict on importing, foreign labor. Like you have to be on
Mm.
your job has to be on a certain demand list, and gem cutting is not on that list. Like if you're a nurse or something, you could maybe, or I don't know what job, but you know what I mean. Like you could import something that no one else can do, but it has to be on this list. And
Yeah.
so he was just like, I'm so overworked and I can't keep up with it. And then I went up and did a talk to the Lapidary Club, like 3 hours north of London. There's like 30 cutters, including some younger ones, and they're like, we would love to like cut some stones for the trade. And I'm just like, come on, guys, like you're in the
Yeah.
same country. I just drove between this guy's office and your guys' house. So somehow we could connect. But it's like it's a big country. It'd be like if I
Oh,
told you, oh,
wow.
there's somebody in Chicago that wants you to move out there and do, you'd be like, well, I live in this place. But
No, I
maybe,
would. I would.
yeah,
I would.
yeah,
People ask me if I would move, and I'm like, yeah, where do you want me to go? And they're like, really? I was like, I have a dog and a bunch of bags. Like, if you want me to go, I'll go. But that's my mentality. Like, I'm gonna hunt for where things are and trying to meet people. I mean, it was awesome that we got to meet and actually have the time to sit down and talk that night. And it was the same
yeah,
thing. It was the same thing with Laura. Like, we had met through social media. We had had a few conversations. It was very like, hey, how are you? Cool stone. How did you cut it? What's the material? How do you like basic, like, you know, not even coffee talk, like basic conversations.
yeah.
We get to Tucson and we're sitting and talking for like 2 hours
On the next level stuff too.
on the
Like,
next level. And
yeah,
it just connects us and now we're connected. It was the same thing with you and I. And that's what I love about it is that since going into Tucson, there were people that I didn't even realize live in my neighborhood in the city, and they're trading, they're cutting.
yeah,
They're going to Bangkok, they're going to Hong Kong, they're going to Sri Lanka, they're going to Tanzania, they're going to places like every month, and they're like down the street from me. I'm like, really? Like let's connect. Let's
yeah.
figure
That's
out
good
how
for
to
your
make this
network
work.
too.
It
Yeah.
is. It
Yeah,
is.
no, Tucson for me this year was the same experience as what you're saying. I I didn't go last year because I couldn't get out of work. So
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't at all been to America in 2 years. Really, since I moved to
Mm.
Bangkok, I hadn't really been back. And since then, we had started the school, and I had, gotten pretty serious on my social media, crusade or whatever. And so I was like meeting people not even every day, like every half an
Yeah.
hour,
Yeah.
that were because I was showing off the gem cutting in the 22nd Street show, and then trying to go to every single party every night just to see everybody, and it's just so many people. I was like, wow, okay, we've talked many times on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, or I never knew you before, but I want to follow your channel because actually what you're doing is really cool, and I just hadn't found you yet.
Yeah.
I found that one guy came up to me and he's like, yeah, I've got this YouTube channel where I just show off gem cutting machines. And I was like, how do I not know about you already? Like, I love gem cutting machines. That's my thing, so, so we
That's
did something
awesome.
together, and just, Tucson this year was awesome. And then, but yeah, that was like the end. That was the golden era over now. Now we're in the dark ages. But I
I
saw a few questions that I think I should
yeah.
address as we go. Um, so someone's saying, is the demand for hand cut stones or precision cut? I would say it just depends on where you're at. Like if you're in London, then it's commercial cut. I mean, most places to be totally honest, from my experience as a professional cutter in the trade, most of the trade doesn't know what is the difference of commercial cut or precision cut. Like we know. I don't know if you
Hmm.
know. I know. Laura knows. Like people who cut know. People who look at cut stones as a
Yeah.
passion know. But like if you're just talking to a jeweler or a regular stone buyer,
No.
it's like, who cares? As far as they're concerned, I
We
care. But
were we
like,
were talking about this yesterday because Laura brought up the exact same point. It's
yeah,
like the
yeah,
windowing of a stone, the fish eyes, the poorly cut stones, the abraded facets,
yeah.
the off center pavilions. Like there's that's what frustrates me the most is that when
And
I
you can
go to
find that
buy,
stuff in high-end brand stones too. That's the thing that blows my mind. I'll see an advertising campaign for like Tiffany or something, and it's like huge
yep,
window stone, and I'm just like, how is that your focal point? Like that, I can't believe this is where we're at in 2020. It's
it makes me really sad because you go to any of these shows or you walk into any of these vendors that you develop relationships with. And I'm going to say this. It if there's anyone on here who's not in the trade, you can't just walk into these offices like blank. You've got to know who they are, you've got to develop relationships with.
yeah,
And being in this industry is not about just waking up one day and being like, I'm going to be a vendor, like I'm going to be a supplier, I'm going to be a broker, I'm going to be a cutter.
yeah. It takes a long time.
It takes a long time, and your reputation is like number one. Like your
Yeah,
reputation is number one. And it's also who you know and who can connect you to somebody else. And once you meet like the first five people, you will be amazed who those five people who know and who they can introduce you to and how your
yeah,
network grows.
yeah,
But you bring up a really important point because I I almost feel like I get very harpy on my account where I'm like, come on guys, if you find a beautiful stone, go have it recut. Like you're not going to be paying $1,000 to have a stone recut. But I can tell you, you might lose some weight, but that stone is going to come alive,
yeah.
and
You're gonna appreciate it more.
you're going to appreciate it more, and you can buy a morganite that has been mass cut. That's just a quick cut with a million facets, and that light leakage is just going to go right from table straight through the pavilion, and it's just going
Yeah.
to be dark and muddy. But under the right hands, under the right cutters, oh my God, I have seen stones. Did we freeze?
I don't know.
Okay, we're
I'm not
right.
frozen. Only you are, and you're making a really funny face in the freeze.
That's great. Thanks. All right. Hopefully no
But
one else saw that.
but
Um, but
one really
that's the
interesting
thing. It's like,
thing. Well, I'm thinking about what you're saying and what the comment is saying as well. Like, um, depending on who your market is and where you're at, people are asking for different stuff. Like,
mhm,
America in general is way more aware of precision cutting than the rest of the world. Like
mhm,
for our customers who are asking us to cut specific stuff,
mhm,
like special cuts,
mhm.
they're almost all in America. Like people who
Yeah.
send us like 100 stones that they need calibrated or whatever, and we have these different factories that we work with to be able to do this kind of stuff. Like, whatever, they can be anywhere, but like where we really see the good sales at is always in America. And it's not because I don't think it's just because I'm American, because I don't have a good American network. Like that's my weakest network because I never lived there since I've been in the trade. But
Mhm.
aesthetically, like I connect with that audience. I mean, I'm from the same mind.
Yeah.
So and to me, it's kind of cool. It's like it's something like high tech. Like
Yeah.
okay, you want to have like the newest iPhone or whatever the gadget that you're really into, and
Yeah.
then like you look, if you're into gemstones, it's like you want to have like this crazy thing. Whether it's like concave fantasy or just really really well done sparkly, or like you want something really classic but perfectly executed, all of which are hard to find. If you're just going, even in Bangkok, like, we have access to so many stones, but like you said, they're just commercial cut. They're just quickly cut, to be the bare minimum of finished, and then
Yeah.
like, and save weight and all that, but not really, unless it's a really special stone, it hasn't really been taken into consideration how
Yeah.
it should be, in terms of bringing out the beauty and everything like that. So,
Somebody asked a really good question while we're on this topic. And the other thing is, Justin, if you can, we've got about 15 more minutes on this, but I have no problem staying and doing another live.
I got no time limit.
Okay. So guys, everyone who's on there, because our numbers actually are going up, if we're going to end this chat in about 15 minutes, and I'm just going to go back into it, and I'll wait for Justin if you have, because you're still recording this. Awesome.
Yeah, I'll stop it and start it again. That'll make it easier for the recording.
Perfect. So everybody just jump back on and we'll continue where we left off. But somebody asked a great question that I really want to point out. They asked it to you. What is the difference between precision cut and commercial cut? And I think that's a really good, because we can get into like the scientific aspect of it, of like really time, because it was one of the questions I had for you, was, it's actually one of the questions I had for you. So why don't you dive into that?
Well, to make it really, really simple, basically commercial cut is like what you normally see if you just go to a trade show or you just look at gems that are in a case. It's like most likely, I'm totally working on stereotypes right now, but like, most likely it's coming from, let's say, Thailand or Sri Lanka. It's getting mass-produced, cut quickly, or India. Sorry, I don't mean to put India down. That's huge, but
yeah, India's huge, guys. We appreciate you guys.
India's huge. But it basically just means, okay, the stone is okay. It's good. It's good enough for the trade, I guess, or historically, but it's far from being super well done. And so the differences are going to be in polishing quality. That's going to be a big one. Meat points, which some people care about and some people don't, depending on where you're at, and basically proportions and angles. And so proportions and angles is going to mean, do you have a big window in the middle of the stone? Is it really deep and there's extinction? Is it shaped like a beach ball on the bottom and it's just totally dead and lifeless? Which I've seen that before, a disco ball on the bottom of the stone.
Oh yeah. Morganites, aquas, but morganites, amethysts, quartzes.
Even I've seen some tourmalines. I saw 100-carat tourmaline that was just like a ball on the bottom, and it was just it was like 80% window, and then after the recut it was just like super flash, but they lost 40 carats in the recut. So
40 carats?
But I mean the customer knew that was going to happen. I didn't do that. The customer knew that was going to happen, and they were cool with it, because it's like, you can't keep 100-carat stone 100 carats and improve it. Like that's the trade-off of recutting. So
some of the commercial cuts honestly are done as quick cuts, in my opinion, are done as quick cuts to save weight. So if they know that they can get 10 carats out of a 15-carat rough, they're gonna do as much as they possibly can to save that weight, and then somebody else is going to recut and the stone's just going to be amazing. But sometimes
when you get into the higher carat stones, like rubies are almost always like that. Like rubies are in like a special category of accept, kind of like emeralds. Emeralds, it's like, we know that there are no clean emeralds, so we're willing to accept inclusions inside of an emerald. And rubies are in their own category as well. It's like, we know rubies are so expensive per carat that if the color's on, we don't, and the clarity's on, we don't really care about the cutting at all. So usually on the first day of class, when I teach my 2-week class, I always give them a disclaimer. It's basically just like, everything I'm going to teach you right now doesn't apply to rubies at all. It's like rubies is in a different world. And sometimes the really high-end sapphires are in that world too. And then everything else is fair game. Because,
somebody just asked, is it accurate to say step cut stones are more commercial cut? I would disagree. I've seen some step cuts that are insane, and they're your basic step cuts. I would say it's how precise the facets are done.
And it's going to be about how precise in terms of like, do the points come together nicely? Really though, if we want to be totally honest, the meeting of the points makes no difference. Like, to the actual brilliance and brightness and color of the stone, the meet point is actually only like a mark of craftsmanship. It's kind of like, and Americans get really crazy on meet points because American cutters are crazy on perfection, you know, like
Oh
that's the
yeah.
thing. That's how they've approached the whole game, is like, we can't be cheap, so we're going to be perfect instead, which is cool. It's a totally different thing. I'm in the middle there, you know, like I
Yeah.
don't want to be perfect because that takes too long, but I don't want to be doing what the tie factories are doing because they're doing that and they're doing it cheap. So we're
Hmm.
trying to be halfway there. And the step cut, no, it's definitely not a commercial cut. I won't get too deep into all the different ways that cutting can change, because I actually have I'm going to do a talk in a couple of weeks that's like a buyer's guide to gem cuts. I'm still
Oh,
working on this
cool.
because I'm trying to take videos of every cut so I can
Yeah.
show it, not just in photos, but in videos.
Yeah.
But basically, you know, like the step cut is the oldest colored stone cut. It's the original cut. So we can go all the way back to like the 1400s and see that they were already starting to do step cut back then,
Oh, wow.
and it's still good now. You know, the thing of the step cut, it improves color saturation, it
Yeah.
keeps weight. So when you're talking about something like a ruby or a sapphire, where you can't just, you know, cut like a point on the bottom because all the bulk comes out of the stone,
Hmm.
you have to be conscious of that. It doesn't, you know, there's always some line between aesthetics and commerce, right? Or
Hmm.
value or whatever. And so we have to, the cutter's job is to balance that always, you know, like if
Yeah.
you're, especially when you're talking about precious stones, like you can't just play the way you always want to play. I mean, sometimes we can. We did a ruby a couple of weeks ago, and we just did a crazy, crazy cut because we were like, when do we ever have a ruby? You know, like we got a ruby and a parcel of sapphires, and we're just like, let's do something crazy with it. And we did. And it, you know, it's
Neat.
interesting because you never see that. But like, no, the step cut is great for increasing color saturation. You know,
Hmm.
like if you like, especially you're talking about morganites, a pale morganite or a pale aqua. If you put a brilliant cut on any pale pastel stone, it'll just turn white. Topaz, any of these sort of lightish stones, it can turn white.
Interesting.
You know, from the rough. I mean, like let's say you got a peachy rough or a
Yeah.
pink rough, and then you make a brilliant cut, which is what people seem to like right now.
Yeah.
You can lose the color because you're increasing flash. You know, the flash is white. So it's like mixing paint. You have red paint and you have white, becomes pink.
Yep.
You know, so um, the kind of cutting isn't really related to quality. You know,
Yeah.
like there's, let's say there's like 10 different cuts we can do between like a princess cut, a step cut, a brilliant cut, a mix cut, an emerald cut. I don't know. You know what I mean? There's like many
Yeah.
cuts, a Portuguese cut. And they all have some purpose, you know, like they all can do something, which is why I'm going to write a whole talk about this. Actually, I want to just give a shout out because it's going to come out sooner or later.
Yeah.
I wrote an article about this actually, and it talks about like the 10, I think 10 cuts, 10 different types of cuts and
Oh,
what they
cool.
do, you know, what do they actually do to the color and everything. That's going to be in, I should have looked this up because I knew I wanted to mention it. It's like the Australian Gemological Journal. I'm not totally sure what they're called, but I'll post it on
Hey,
Instagram when
Laura,
it
if
comes
you're
out.
if you're still on this, can you help us?
Yeah, she's the one that hooked it up. I think she
Okay.
connected me to the editor, and so I was like, well, yeah, I have this one article that I wrote. I don't know what to do with it right now. It's like a buyer's guide to cut styles, because I've never seen anything like this. You know, like you know, because people just, no one understands
Yeah.
what, like the question. It's a great question because
Yeah.
what is the difference? You know, like actually it's pretty technical, but
Yep.
visually, if I can show you pictures, you'll see. And when I show the students, you know, we've done samples of every kind of cut in the school. When I show
Absolutely.
samples to the students on the first day, you have to see them in real life. You know, the picture can't
Yeah.
show you how does it move, you know, how does it
Right.
flash over 30 degrees of rotation and tilt, you know, like, you know, but yeah, different cuts can do different things, and there's a place for almost every cut, even like the Portuguese cut that we see very often done in such a bad way. Sometimes on the morganite, that is the best cut because it can
Yeah.
actually make a sort of ambient pink color that without too
That's
much
true.
flash. And
That's
yeah,
true.
so
That's true. This might be a perfect because we are right
okay,
now at
okay,
like 3 minutes till it ends, and I'm afraid that if we go into another question, we'll go over.
okay, so we'll
So
jump off and jump back.
jump off. There's a lot of you guys. We're coming right back, and then we have some more questions to ask each other. And I will make sure I answer because there's a lot of good questions coming in, and I'm going to answer them. I'm screenshotting them. So
Hey, I want to start going on other people's live videos now and requesting to be in their video just to
you
mess
really,
with them.
you really should. I do it on occasion. I'm just like, hey, can I be part of your video? And they're like, yes. And I was like, no, no,
Oh wow, I'm gonna
you
try it.
should.
This is I've never this is my first time ever using Instagram Live. I never even, I mean, I knew it existed, but I didn't know you could do a two-person. How
Yeah.
many can you do? Can you do more than two?
So I don't know because we could always try. Like at the end of this, if somebody that we know wants to jump into a conversation, we
Or
could
like 10?
try.
We can do like 10
We could do
people.
like 10, but I don't know how that would.
I
I
think
don't
the
know how that would
audio,
go.
yeah, I think it would
Yeah,
get messed up pretty quick.
yeah. But you guys are all jumping on, and I think our number is like about seven below what it was right before. We had our highest number was like 55 at one point, which was like
Whoa.
it's like, hey guys, having fun. All right, so to answer
Someone said
those,
something about books. What was that book
yes.
question? I
Okay,
like that.
so there were three good questions. Somebody asked you, do you have a YouTube channel?
Yeah.
Do you post your videos or your educational information anywhere online, or are there videos talking about it? And what books would you recommend for somebody starting out or somebody who just wants to continue to teach themselves and educate themselves?
Okay. Um, yes, I have a YouTube. It's I think if you just type in my name, Justin K. Prim, it'll pop up. I have a ton of videos on there. I got a YouTube series that I was doing, or still I'm doing, called World of Faceting Machines. So as you can see, we've got this like museum of gem cutting machines back here. It's
Oh my
like I
God,
got
you're
like
a total nerd. I love it.
yeah. I figured if Gemology Geek, we should show off the real geeky stuff. So yeah, I have 42 faceting machines behind me from all over the world. So every
Oh
time I go to
wow.
one of these countries, I try to bring one back if I can. But so I've started a series where I spend like 3 or 4 minutes showing, different machines and different techniques. And now I've actually been going around the world when I can and actually showing other people doing, whatever they do in terms of like their own country's style. But so yeah, the YouTube has a lot of good stuff. I started doing what for me is Tuesday morning in America is Monday night. I've been doing a live cutting streaming thing for like 3 hours. So all those videos are on there. So if you want to just sit and watch me cut and talk to people asking me questions, that's pretty educational. I think that's probably the most educational thing because I'm just showing not all the
Yeah.
secrets, but there's some things I don't do on video very consciously, but I'm showing people how to cut amethyst and how to cut sapphire and stuff like that. And just,
We could do a
you know,
live, we could just do like a live training of like, hey guys,
yeah,
here's,
yeah, yeah.
I think that
But
could be fun.
what I'm working on right now, because we're in this crazy time,
Hold on, they're
uh,
saying, can they not hear? Can
I think,
can you guys hear us? Some people can say, I think people can hear us, and then there's one person.
oh,
Okay,
that person can hear us. I think
I can
maybe if
still hear you
sometimes
guys.
if
Okay,
you're
cool. Okay,
so
just making
maybe
sure.
if your phone's on vibrate, sometimes that
Yeah.
turns the audio off or something.
Okay,
But
sorry about the break. I just want to make sure people can hear.
oh, they had to turn up the sound on the phone. So yeah, we got the museum here, and then I think
It's
if I press
awesome.
this button, it'll flip it around.
Yep. Double click.
I'm too close to the thing, but we got the library over here, so there's a lot of books. Yeah, I'll show you. Let me just show you a few books because just to respond to that question.
Yep.
The best book, in my opinion, there's a ton of books out there. There's a ton of books out there. They're not that useful. This one, I don't know if it's back. Is this backwards? I don't know. It says
Let's see.
Amateur Gemstone Faceting by uh,
It did flip, but hey guys,
Tom Herbst.
screenshot it and then
Yeah,
there you go.
and then flip it. You can get this on Amazon. It's like $25.
Okay.
This is the only book worth getting as far as like instructional faceting stuff.
Oh wow.
I have a whole library of books because I'm doing historical research, but
Yeah.
they're not that useful. Like if you like collecting books, they're cool. By the way, side note, I'm gonna do a talk. I think this is confirmed now. I'm gonna do a talk in a couple of weeks or in two or three Sundays with Richard Hughes. I don't know if you know Richard Hughes from Lotus Gemology,
Yeah.
and he has this amazing collection of antique gemology books, like all the way back to the 1600s. And I was like, okay, Richard Hughes, he's like the ruby and sapphire guy. Everyone always asks about ruby and sapphire. I want to talk to him about something else because he and I are both book nerds. And I was like, let's talk about book collecting, gemology book collecting. And so I think
Okay,
you
you
can.
have just taken this from like kind of nerdy and kind of geeky
No,
to like, whoa.
he blew my mind because he has books that I've, been looking at on, archive.org or Google Books or whatever. Like seriously, from the 1600s, he's got them in his house. He's like, check it out, you can touch it. Just like, oh my God, there's the picture that I've been obsessing over.
I have
It's
one
good.
thing from my grandfather, my on my dad's side, and because he used to do lapidary work, and he after he passed away, we were going through all of his books, and there was one. It's actually I'm grabbing it. So this is like I use this book a lot as like my main
Oh
like
yeah,
just
I
like
got that one.
checking facts. Like it's like a quick. So if anyone is looking for just like a good basic, this is like my good just basic. Um, but it's this version from like the 60s, and I have it in my apartment, and it's just like
Yeah,
sits there.
I was trying to look
And
for mine. I have the same book, but I don't see it on the shelf.
yeah,
But yeah,
it's a
that
good.
one's
It's good. It's easy. Especially for people who are not like super into the trade, but it talks about it. Just
like
it's
a good
good.
introduction.
Good introduction. It talks a little bit about the scientific aspects of it as well as like the geology and the gemology without making your head explode. Because some of the books are written in ways that someone like Justin and we understand the language, but it's not for everybody. So you have to find books that are written in ways that are like for the level that you want to get to or the level
Yeah.
that you're at. Don't read anything that you don't understand. To be honest, I mean,
Well, and that cutting book is pretty much written like a Wikipedia. You know what I mean? It's like so
that's awesome.
straightforward, and it's written the way that he organized it. It's not like an encyclopedia, but it's very well organized. So it's like
Yeah.
you always you can just immediately go to the question. Like sometimes even now, like I just learned how to do oxide polishing, if that means anything. It's like a polishing technique I never used, using oxides instead
Somebody
of
asked
diamonds.
that. Okay, that's a good question because somebody in the other thing asked that, and I wasn't sure what that was. But
Yeah.
what I don't know what that is.
Basically, what it means is let's just say now in the modern day, most of the world, as far as professional gem cutters, are using diamond powder to polish their stones, right? It's
Right.
fast, it's easy, it's cheap, it doesn't give you that many headaches, but it doesn't work on every stone. And the number one that it doesn't work on is quartz, any kind of quartz. It's very
Oh
hard to
wow.
polish quartz with diamond. I don't know why, but they don't like each other. So
Okay.
but and I so I don't teach quartz cutting in the class because we don't have the gear for it. Like we don't have this extra stuff that we need. And so while we're down in downtime right now, I was like, I know how to polish quartz. First of all, I want to put that out there. I've polished quartz a lot, but the way that I want to teach it, I don't want to use like high tech stuff that I have to import from America. I want to teach
Yeah.
something that's kind of traditional and also universal because like being based in Asia means we don't always have access to all that stuff, all
Really?
those tools, like
I didn't know that.
American made tools. We have to import them and they're super, they're expensive to the
Hmm.
shipping and stuff. So like I don't want someone to pay like $2,000 to come to my class and I have to be like, now you have to import this stuff from America. It's like I want people to be able to buy stuff locally and buy stuff from us or whatever. And I don't want it to have to be like, well, the only way I'm going to teach you how to polish is if you buy this like product from this one company that's branded. Like I don't want to
Yeah.
do that. So to me, I'm not going to teach that. So I'm looking at the old fashioned cutters and I'm texting my guys in England who are 75 and being like, uh how do you polish quartz, on a tin lap with some oxide powder? And so I've been doing their old techniques and seeing how it works, but I didn't know how to do it. So, and that's the case where I might pull this out and just flip through and be like, okay, what does he say about that
Hmm.
one thing that I never really learned because I never learned
Yeah.
that. And so to me, I still look at that book. Like even though I'm a gem cutting teacher,
Yeah.
there's still a random thing that I might haven't thought about in a while, or it's a good reference. So
Yeah.
and $25, whatever. It's a book you'll probably have forever if you're a cutter.
I mean, I keep this book on hand for when I'm like, I'm rushing through things or I'm writing something up and I'm just like, I want to double check the locality of something, or I want to check, the exact Mohs hardness of something. I just keep this book with me. It's one of those things where it's just like, I don't have all the information at every given moment. So
Yeah.
it's just a good,
And I'm
it's a good
sure
way.
if you're dealing with, this is one of the things I wanted to ask you about as well.
Yeah.
You're dealing with customers, I'm guessing directly face to face
Well,
sometimes
yes, most of the time it was
because
face to
you're
face.
close to the end market. Whereas me,
Yep.
I almost never ever get to meet any of our customers. It's always by the internet and by mail.
It's interesting. It's a mix. I have some clients who are in the city. I would say most of my clients at this moment um, are from um, overseas, um, other states. So a lot of it is sending high res pictures
Hmm.
in nighttime, in daylight, outside, inside,
Okay,
kitchens,
so we're all
bathrooms.
doing the same thing actually then.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends what someone's looking for. If I can't find it or I don't have it, I'll send it to, I'll reach out to my friends and be like, "Hey, I've got a client looking for something. Can you send it to me or can I send the client to you?" And we work something out. I mean, it's wonderful in that way
Yeah,
because I would say I get people who see one picture and they're like, "I want it." I was like, do you need video?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I get
That happens
really
to us too.
nervous. I get really nervous. I was like, can I send you videos? They're like, no, 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 it's fine. I want the stone. I was like,
Yeah.
that was
And
a really,
this happened to us this week, and I was like, I gotta send you some videos just for my own
yeah,
peace of mind because like you didn't even see the
yeah.
video, you just saw the photo. Just PayPal me. Okay, look,
It's
can I?
I I had one person just being like, PayPal, please, and I was like, dude, you need to see this stone in like a lot of different lighting. Like it was beautiful. It was a bicolor sapphire. It was purple and pink. It was probably one of the coolest ones I've seen. It was small, but
Wow,
like
okay.
the
Purple and pink. That sounds
it
cool.
was purple on the sides and pink were like kind of off to the center, but the way it was cut,
Whoa,
it wasn't, I'll send you a picture of it. It wasn't precision
funky.
cut, but
Yeah.
it was super funky. Somebody wanted a pink sapphire. And then she texted me randomly. She's like, by the way, if you ever come across a purple with pink, I called up a friend of mine and was like, I've never seen one. If you have purple with pink, he was like, yeah, I've got this done that I got last week. I was like, it's mine. Done. Like, I think
Wow.
I've got the client. Sent the picture
Good
to
deal.
her. And she didn't want a video. She was like, oh, this is great. I'm done. I'm like,
Perfect
okay,
customer. Perfect
okay.
customer. Gotta
You
you
know,
gotta count our blessings when that happens because
oh, it's
that's
so easy. But
easy.
I do like the difficult clients too. I like the clients that want to see 6 and 7, 8 stones that haven't seen what they love yet and they want more options, or and then you find that perfect stone for them and you can hear the tone in their voice just light up. Like it goes from, oh, that's really pretty, oh, that's cool, oh, I like that, I don't love the cut, and they almost go, sorry, I didn't mean I don't like the cut. I'm like, that's okay, I need the I don't likes
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah. You want to hone in on what they
yeah,
want.
the
So,
more you tell me you don't like something, the better I can find you exactly. And then all of a sudden you send them something and they're like, oh, that's amazing. And I'm like, I did
but
my
so
job.
do you ever get to interact with people because you're in New York? Do you ever have local
I
face to
do.
face?
I do. I would say most of my customs, like the custom pieces from gemstone all the way through jewelry, that's a lot of face to face. That's meeting with people,
Mm,
that's showing them options. It's it's kind of it's a lot of coaching. It's a lot of,
yeah.
I'm it's a lot of one-on-one, which I love because I I can read their facial expressions, I can read their body language, I can see, I get to ask them questions that are personal, about their relationships, or what is this piece going to be for you? Are you going to wear it every day, or is it going to be something that you're going to wear once a year? So
Yeah.
I know how crazy to make this. It's it's a to me it's a lot of mix, but I because of video I can do it both ways. So I
That's
can do it
cool.
both ways.
I kind of
Yeah.
romanticize about this experience because, yeah, we never, ever, ever get to do it. Like Tucson this year was the first time where I've had people just give me a stone and be like, can you cut this today? I'm like, yes, I can cut this today. And it's just like,
Oh,
if I was in New York or LA, you know, like if I was in America in one
yeah,
of the gym hub places, I would just get so crazy on experience, you know, like, because this is what
yeah,
I think it's all about, you know, like this is why I'm putting so much effort into all this social media, YouTube, everything stuff, because it's like this is
yeah,
the only experience I can do at a distance. You know, I can make a YouTube show, we can do these chats. It's
yeah.
fun, it's super fun. You know, if we can go to a trade show, okay, we can do a talk or something. But um, yeah, if I was in New York, I would just make like the craziest shop. You know, we'd be gem cutting in there, showing everybody what we're doing, and you know, I don't know. You know, of course, New York is really expensive, but like I'm
It
dreaming, you
is.
know, of like what I will do later in life.
But see, those are the dreams that I love. I mean, those are the dreams that I think, our generation's excited about, especially with
Yeah,
this connection. I mean, it's none of us, I think, want to work completely alone. I think some of us want to have these communities, have these think tanks, and have these spaces where
yeah, for sure.
you have multiple people and you all are helping each other. You all are doing technically your own thing, but at the same time, you're all working for the same
Yeah,
mission. And I love those. I absolutely love those ideas. I think that some of the best creative uh, things get done out of them. And I also think some of the most supportive behavior and the connections that people make, because then someone comes to you and you've got five people in this office and they're all experts in what they're doing, from gemology to jewelry, and somebody walks into your shop and they're like, oh, you've got it all. Like, I want to work with you guys because you guys are the
yeah,
best of what you guys know how to do.
yeah.
So that dream, don't let that die. I want
Oh no,
in.
we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. Just imagine like a museum, gem
Oh,
cutting museum with the stones. You know, I didn't mention this before, but my wife is a gem cutter as well.
yeah.
And she's from France, and so we were in France like 2 years ago, you know, see some of these old-fashioned machines over there because there's a lot of people around Geneva area that in the mountains that have these old-fashioned hand crank gem cutting machines
Yeah.
from like the 1800s. And so we saw one that was for sale, and we went to see it, and like, you know, it was like $1,000. So I was like, we're not even considering getting this. We just want to check it out because it's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And we checked it out, and it was like in really, really good shape. And she looked at me and she was like, "Should I get it?" And I was like, "Are you crazy?" She's like, we got it. We got it. We talked the lady down a little bit on the price, but we got it. And it's just like, imagine if you walk into a shop and there's a gem cutting machine from the 1800s that still works. Maybe we're even using it. I don't know. This is part of my fantasy, but like,
Sure.
this is so cool. You know, like this is, no one is doing anything like this. You know, basically the last two times I was in America and I was able to have time to go into jewelry shops, I was super not impressed. You know, like I was just like, this is just like every other jewelry shop. It's just
Yeah.
like you look like you're a brand or you want to be a brand, and like I don't feel comfortable in here, even though I'm a gem cutter in the gem trade. This isn't my place. I
No.
want
I
to be
mean,
in a fun place
and
that's like,
there's this new world of these, really beautiful jewelry stores that are popping up. But I feel it's hard. There's some great stores out there, and there are
yeah,
some
there's a
stores
couple
out
really
there
cool, quirky dudes.
core, and they're doing great.
Yeah,
They are showing their curation of their line is beautiful. But others, I walk in and I'm just like, I'm bored. Like, and I like to
yeah,
place, if somebody doesn't recognize me, which I really hope they never recognize me, I like to play stupid. Like, I like walking into jewelry stores and being like, oh, what's that? And like, and seeing what someone's going to say. And
yeah.
I have heard some of the craziest things that are far from true.
Oh yeah, oh
And
yeah. There's a lot
I,
of deception going on in those counters. Everything's heated and there's no labels on anything, I mean, colored
yeah,
stone wise, you know. But
no,
going back to what you were just saying about like working with a community of like-minded people, I really,
yeah,
you know, this is one of the things that I really love about Bangkok. You know, there's a really strong community of people here that are of the same age, you know, like kind of late 20s to mid 30s or whatever. And this is kind of how we see ourselves here as well, kind of like a guild,
yeah,
like me and Victoria can do the cutting. We've got our friend Simon at Asia Lounges who does like really, really killer jewelry. Our friend
Wow.
Arjuna, who does, he's like probably one of the best gem photographers in the world, is here. And like, we just have this community of people that, and then Billy Hughes, who is like running the Lotus Lab with her family. Like we have so many heavy hitter like
I mean,
people of our
that family
age.
is amazing, and the books that
Yeah.
they've done. Oh my
Oh
goodness.
yeah. And it's just like every Monday night we just kick it after work at the bar or at the restaurant or
Oh,
whatever.
that's
Like this is
awesome.
just our ritual. Like and not now, but now every Saturday we just we're going on like a 10-person Zoom call and having like a toast with the sunset because we can't get
Oh,
together. But like normally every Monday or every Thursday or something, we get together every week
yeah.
because why wouldn't we? We're all friends. It's like being in Tucson, except for it happens all year and there's not as many people. But
That's
um,
amazing. So
yeah,
I had another question for you. So
okay.
getting back to the this conversation of, lapidary and cutting, for anybody new, for anybody who's just starting, what do
hmm
you think are the biggest mistakes that people make?
Biggest mistakes. Hmm.
Someone
Well,
said we should have a podcast. You guys should have a podcast.
I'm down with that. I've been wanting to start a podcast for a while. I love podcasts. I
Yeah.
listen to them all the time while I'm cutting. And I already have like 10 episodes in my mind, like topics with interviews and different, whatever. Talk about that. That's not a bad idea. Was that your podcast?
No, that wasn't my podcast. That was me, that was me waving to somebody, and it's like the double click, and I'm like, yes, that's the rest of the rest of my desk. So, okay,
Biggest
mistakes that people make.
mistakes. I don't know. It's a hard question. As a teacher,
Hmm.
I've seen lots of mistakes, but they're I mean they're obvious. Like the mistake that everyone would make. Like okay, it takes you a little while to learn a new skill, so I don't want to say anything like, everyone makes a stupid mistake, but I'm just trying to think about. I don't know. Okay, this is what pops into my mind. This is not
Yeah,
from my students or anything, but just like when I meet other cutters, like, and I'm just talking about super, super amateur level, not like people who are
yeah.
killing it on Instagram, but like, like let's say people who are in a lapidary club who maybe do a local show and they have a bunch of stones that are natural that they cut and they're selling them
Hmm.
for like $10. And I'm like, dude, how can this pair of earrings that are in silver that you cut be $20, $25? Like this isn't, and it's amethyst, I mean, even if it's amethyst, it's a little bit of a cheaper stone, but still, like you cut it. It's
Yeah,
awesome. Like this
yeah.
is your thing. And but like they're not in the trade. They don't really care. It's just for fun. But I would say not valuing yourself. That's a good one. But it takes a while to understand what your value is. Even for me,
Hmm.
actually, even now, my wife is still always telling me like the price is supposed to be higher than that. Like you're underselling yourself.
I know.
And when we were in Tucson, we had a lot of talks about this because I had some really nice conversations with Laura, who you were talking with this morning, and
Hmm.
Jean Noel, top notch faceting.
Yeah,
And
he was just on a little while ago.
yeah, we didn't shout him out, but I saw him come in.
Sorry.
But like, like he was constantly just like, you guys should be charging like 5 times more than what you're charging because
Yeah.
it's okay, and me and Laura are just like, well, like I don't want to be too expensive or I don't want to feel like I'm not giving someone a good value for,
Yeah.
even if we are like doing something
Hey,
that's very
you're still
unique.
here.
Oh, there he is. Yeah. So, whatever. Not valuing yourself.
Yeah.
And also maybe,
It's important because I think I'll connect this to like a gender thing really quickly, but I think women believe that we had to like lessen the value of product. But it's not just us, it's everybody. It's everyone in this
yeah,
industry thinks that we have to put a price tag on it because we don't think there's someone out there that's going to buy it. And the truth is that yes, sometimes we want to price something so it does move and
yeah,
we want to give someone an opportunity to buy it. Um, but at the end of the day, we are valuable. And somebody who I really respect, who I've actually done a video with, um, Deirdre Featherstone, she looked at me and she said to me, and it was so wonderful that she said this to me. She said to me, you have value, you are not cheap and you shouldn't be cheap. And someone's paying for your expertise and someone's paying for your
Yeah.
experience. And it was the first person who stopped me in my tracks and was like, you need to charge more for this. You cannot do what you're doing, because then people aren't going to, it's not that I was too expensive or too cheap. It was that people aren't going to value you for what you're really worth. And she was absolutely right. And you bring that up and he's 100% right. I mean, there's the right way of charging, which is appropriate to the market and reading the market. And then there's people that are charging way, way too much and no one's going to afford, certain work and certain jobs.
Yeah.
But you've got to find that sweet spot.
And someone had just said this. It's very hard to find your right market, and that is true. But the thing is, like, what I'm starting to learn more and more and more when I know more and more eccentric people. Like, I met this girl recently from Estonia. She came over here to do I guess you'd say an art exhibition for her gemstones in an art gallery. And she does some crazy stuff. She makes the gemstones that look like they're melting, this girl.
Yes, no, I think so.
Okay.
Was she in Tucson?
No, you're thinking of two other Estonian girls. There's 3 Estonian gem cutters, not either one of those two.
Okay.
This lady, her name slips my mind right now, but maybe it will pop in later. But she makes gemstones that look like they're melting, basically like melting ice. And I saw them, and they're all the ones she brought were like white quartz that are included because she likes it, because it's big and it's a sculpture,
Yeah.
Some of the pieces are quite huge, And I looked at them and I was like, wow, these are so crazy. I've never seen anything like this. This is really bridging faceted stones and sculpture in a way that nobody's ever done. And then I looked at the stones and I was like, some of them are like, I don't know, $13,000 for quartz included. And I was like, we went to dinner with her and I was like, do you sell these often? And she's like, 3 or 4 a year, and that keeps me going. And I was just like, wow, okay. You have to find the market, and it might take a little while, but if you're doing something that's either the best or unique or just enough different to be, exactly. Julia Kuna, thank you. She's awesome. Check her out. She doesn't even have Instagram. I don't even know how I can just type her name into Google. It's on the chat right now. The Google image thing has so many cool photos of her stuff. It's really weird in a great way. I've never, like, she's doing something nobody ever thought of before, melting gemstones. So simple, but it's so cool.
I think that's a great answer. I mean, people are just not pricing themselves appropriately. Is your biggest mistake.
I mean, there's tons of other beginner mistakes. I mean, I see a lot of people who don't understand proportion correctly. Like, they're making super deep gemstones that can never be set. I think that's a pretty good beginner mistake. Like, everything's deep crown, deep pavilion. You're trying to use the rough, but until you've looked at jewelry and seen how jewelry gets set, like, this is probably a good thing for any new gem cutter. Go look at some jewelry and see what a gemstone's supposed to look like in the setting. Because of course, we're cutting stones for jewelry, right? Like, that's the ultimate end point for where the stone's going to go. So if it can't fit into the setting, and for me, I always envision rings, because I love rings. So, like, I always try to cut stones that are going to work well in a ring, because that's where I put all my stones in. If I make jewelry, I always put stones in rings. So that's my fantasy, is like,
and proportions are so important. I mean, you're 100% right. There are so many stones that I see in Tucson that for the clients that I work with, that I see and I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect. And I pop it out of its jewel box and it's super deep or super shallow. The pavilion is like, the crown is like this big and the pavilion is like this big. And I look at the cutter and I'm like, so can we fix this? And he's like, I'm not cutting it, but you can send it. And I'll send it to someone. But he's like, oh, you don't want to do it. You're going to lose color. And, depending on the price, I'll pick it up and I'll send it to somebody. And I'm like, am I going to lose a lot of color? Is it going to change color? What's going to happen? Because that is another thing. I mean, you could lose color. You could change color. Things,
and Jean-Noel just brought up a good point, going back to valuing your stuff. Like, Julia Kunup has been doing that for 6 years and maybe more. You know, she's been
Yeah.
doing art for a long time. You know, like it takes a long time to get good at something. It takes a long time to
Yes.
find your niche. You know, like I'm now at 7 years as a gem cutter. I feel like I just found my niche
Yep.
in the last year. You know, like
Yep.
I still feel like
Oh,
I'm still gonna find some new way of making a stone that nobody
yeah.
else, you know what I mean? Like I'm looking at what everybody else is doing and being like, this is awesome, this is awesome, this is awesome. But I'm not gonna try and do that, you know, like that's their
Yeah.
thing. So I want to try
Right.
and you know, I also love classic cuts too. So like my last couple years I've been focusing on how to make the perfect mixed cut cushion because that's my favorite cut. You know,
Oh,
the classic cut. It's hard, you know. It's
yeah.
hard to make the perfect cushion with a smooth girdle, no faceting on the girdle, like the way that Paris loves. And so, you know, I've been playing around with just becoming really good at making good shapes because that's
Yeah.
hard. That's probably the
So,
hardest thing.
so one of the other questions I asked Laura last night this, but I really want to ask you too. Have you ever cut something that turned out to be a total surprise, or an inclusion showed up that you didn't expect that just wowed you or was really cool? So anything from an inclusion that was awesome that showed up, or color that you didn't expect, any stone that you cut that you just didn't expect the outcome to be
I'm trying to think. I've got a
better
lot
or
of them.
more exciting.
Um, I'm trying to think about something where it was an accident. I have some in mind that came out really well, like a special effect, but unexpectedly, I don't know. Nothing's coming into my mind. I'm sorry. That's a good question, but I don't.
No. I
I
mean, like,
you
I
know,
always think of like peridot popping up with like the lily pad inclusions because I just think they're so
yeah.
cool.
Well, actually, I've had some student. That's happened to some students. Some really cool ones, actually. Like you know, we were doing this thing for a while where the third project in the class, we actually would go out into the gem market and find the rough, and it was peridot, and so we
Oh,
would
cool.
buy the peridot from the dealer. You know, typically it's like a dude from Africa who's got all the fresh rough,
Yeah.
and like we'd go through it and pick it out, and I do a little mini lesson about rough in the gem trade center,
Hmm.
and then we have our torch, we have our loop, and we buy it. And this one girl was like, "Oh, I really want to get this one." And I was like, "Oh, well, this one has like a lot of like needles inside of it and this and that." And she's like, "Oh no, I like that stuff." And I was like, "Okay, that's cool. I mean, it's a nice piece. It's just not clean, but
Yeah.
it was attractive though. You know, like the inclusions were interesting. They weren't
Okay.
just random crystals and stuff. They were like
Yeah.
a bunch of parallel black, I think, rutile needles. And so she took it, she cut it, oval mixed cut, and I got this awesome photo with the macro lens. And it's like the cut she did is really, really nice, but then you have all these crisscrossing black needles that are going through this perfectly green, clear peridot. And I was like, she knew what she was doing in that one. You know what I mean? Like she knew what she liked. Some people wouldn't like that, you know. Like
Oh, that's awesome. I think that's awesome.
I I wouldn't have thought to encourage her to do that because usually people want to make clean stones, but
Yeah.
she knew what she wanted and she surprised me actually. So that was impressive. I didn't even
I
see it
love
until I
that
took the
stuff.
photo and then I was like, whoa, this stone looks really cool. And if you can see that stone actually, for anyone that wants to check it out, you have to scroll back a little bit, but in the Instagram for the school, it's IGT Thailand. You can go back like I don't know, it's about 6 months ago, and there's four stones in a swiping thing that were the four final stones of that class, and I think hers might be the first one because I thought that was the coolest.
Send it to me tonight. Send it to me, and then I'll post it in my
Okay,
Instagram stories and be like, "Hey
okay,
guys,
yeah, because that one was a
this is the
yeah.
stone."
Some of my
I
favorite ones. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
no, go. I love those type of things. I love inclusions that when like the stone's cut, it just pops and it's awesome. When this past Tucson, I found um somebody had, it was huge. It was like 15 karat like burgundy spinel, just covered in included crystals. And I got this really awesome picture with I have a lens that pops onto my camera that's just 10 power, and you just see all these crystals like floating in this
Oh yeah.
burgundy. Oh, I think inclusions are fabulous if they're the right
Oh yeah,
inclusions and they're
yeah,
placed properly.
if they're placed properly, you have to have a special customer to appreciate them. But yeah, I see everybody's posting their favorite things. But somebody just said when there's one rutile needle that's positioned perfectly, which I think they're meaning when you position it straight down from the table into the cullet point, and
Yeah.
it radiates out like I don't know, like bike spokes or something.
Yep.
That's hard to do, but it's pretty cool. And yeah, of course, rutilated quartz. Tucson, you can find so many crazy things. One thing I really like is, or I did this only one time so far, but it's what is that called? It's quartz with what's the name? It's something blue that grows on the outside of the quartz. It starts with a B, but I can't
Oh,
think of it right now.
I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
I don't know,
It's on
but
my
anyway,
page. It's
yeah,
fuzzy and it's blue.
yeah.
Sorry
So I
guys, it's
cut.
on my page. There's so much in my head right
It'll
now.
pop in here. It'll
Yeah.
pop in here. But I one time took one of those, and the blue on this piece, at least, it was growing on the outside of the stone, and so I cut it like an emerald cut, but I didn't with a cullet facet. But the cullet facet was actually just the untouched natural surface of the stone, the blue.
Oh, cool.
And so when you look at the top of the stone, it looks all blue. You know, like the whole stone is blue, but actually the whole stone is clear, which is this little blue cullet facet, and it makes the whole stone turn blue because it's reflecting off all the other. Sunstone is another one like that, where you know if you can get that perfect, the schiller, the copper schiller inside of the
Yes.
sunstone, and the whole stone can just turn into this most excellent color. So, yeah, you know,
I love
those stones are
sunstones.
fun.
They are. They're
Yeah,
definitely fun. Um, Actually, that leads into like one of my questions I had for you. One of my other questions I had for you, which was, I just lost it.
didn't
Where'd it
have to do
go?
sunstone.
Yes, well, kind of. Picking rough.
Oh yeah, rough.
Are you picky? Do you look for, crystal habit structure first? Like, what is your process for picking rough? Or what do you recommend as the process for picking rough?
My process has changed this year actually because my budget changed this year. So this 2019 to 2020, this is like the year in our life where we went from like we're spending like $100, so we're spending like $1,000. You know, now
Mm-hmm.
we're like we bought some pretty big parcels in Tucson, and right before Tucson, we had somebody come over on the way to Tucson, and we never spent like $10,000 on stones before. Now we're like, okay, well, you can do that now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, you start to think about things differently when you get into that price point. You know, when you're
Mm-hmm.
spending $100 on one stone, you're like, okay, I can experiment with this one. When you're
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, 20 stones, $10,000, okay, these got to be good. You know, you got to kind of have an idea that you're going to get the money back, and more, right? And like
Yeah.
hopefully a lot more. But my process, I mean, the shape, first of all, you want to have a good shape, otherwise you're going to lose too much of the stone. You don't want to have weird little long bits coming off of it or big holes because you're going to have to eat into the stones too much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, of course, color. I don't know what's number one, color or shape or what, but like if the color's not on, you're not gonna. It doesn't matter how good you cut a bad color if it's a
Yeah.
color nobody likes or you know. The other thing too, if you're buying like pleochroic stones, like you know, sapphires or tourmalines or
They're my
anything, you know,
favorite.
I had kind of a realization this year. I don't know if this is even true, but this is in my experience. I never
Mm-hmm.
really liked emeralds. Like for my whole 6 years of being in the trade, emeralds never ever had any appeal to me at all until I cut a few. I've cut a few good ones,
Yeah.
and I had this feeling like once I cut one was a recut and one was from rough, and
Ooh.
I cut them both in this. It's from the same customer, so I did them back to back, and I was kind of like looking at the stone, and I was like, whoa, not whoa, but like wow, you know, like
Yeah.
this is, and it was a nice stone. Like it was I didn't have any idea that it was a good emerald because I don't have a lot of experience with emeralds because
Mm-hmm.
that's just not something anyone's given to me before. But
Mm-hmm.
once I cut it, and I kind of had this feeling, I had this thought like maybe pleochroic stones, because there's two different or sometimes three different colors
Yeah.
playing together, you know, because if you think about what are precious stones, like historically, ruby, sapphire, and emerald, all
Yep.
pleochroic.
Yep.
Maybe the way that two colors come together inside of the stone, and the way that you can't really put your finger on what color it really is, even sometimes just shifting it
Yep.
a little bit changes that color. Maybe we have a special feeling about that. You know, it gives us a certain kind of special feeling that one color can't always do. And so I kind of had this idea that maybe, you know, we have a special love of pleochroism. But I speak about that because that goes into looking at rough. Sometimes you find a stone, and maybe the stone is clean and it's great, and the color is on the wrong side. You know, like for
Mm.
whatever reason, like, you know, like for instance, I've got one actually on the
Yeah.
dock right now. This is like my nightmare stone right now. Okay, this, I don't know if you can tell, but this is huge. It's a tourmaline. It's green. I think you can pretty easily
Yeah.
tell. On this side,
Yep.
it's green. On this side, it's black. Now, when you have this black C-axis in the stone, you
Yep.
don't really want it to be on this side. You know, this is the side that's
Right.
going to reflect all the color. You can see I've already cut in half the crown. It's not finished polishing yet because
Yep.
I'm just getting to it. But like, this is like a nightmare stone because I know that this stone's not going to come out well because you want the black to be on this shorter side, but the shape of the rough, I couldn't justify. I mean, I don't know the guy, you know, I have to work with the customer
Right.
and deal with, you know, he wants to get it to be a certain size. And I'm like, okay, but it's going to be really,
Interesting.
really dark. You know, like you can't make the
Yeah.
bottom of the stone the right shape and reflect and avoid reflecting the black sea axis. So, and
Wow.
this guy's giving me a bunch of stones like that. They're just like nightmare stones because you put a lot of work into them. You want them to be good. You understand exactly what's going on, you know, like geologically or whatever,
Yeah.
but you're disappointed, and then you have to give that to the customer and charge them.
Right.
And you know, and this
But
is a
there's
huge
no other
stone.
option. It's what
Yeah, and I
happens.
mean,
I mean,
this started as like, I don't know, 30 carat stone, and it's going to be, I don't know how big it is now, 15 carats or something. You know, like it's going to be
wow.
expensive, and I don't think he's going to like it, but he keeps giving me stones like that. So,
Well,
um,
he obviously thinks that, maybe he likes it. I mean, you're you. So obviously he loves your work. So no matter what you turn
yeah.
into, I mean, you've got to feel
I mean, some of the
nightmare
stuff he gave me was
stones.
amazing. You know,
Yeah.
some of it was amazing, even with the black sea axis when when the sea axis is in the right way. And for this piece, he gave me a one piece. It was like 350 carats. Like it was like a chunk, but it was all cracked. So I cut it into about 15 pieces. This is what we decided to do,
Yeah.
and
I
some of
hope
them
there's
came
no
out
mineral people
amazing.
on here. I've got a mineral community. I hope no men's on here. So don't
I
hate
don't know.
us.
I don't. It wasn't. I didn't think it was an especially beautiful crystal. You know, it wasn't like a saber really. Um, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It's always a struggle if you have to deal with uh, rough. That's challenging. Somebody said, "Can you please post the whole website link?" I think somebody else had asked for the YouTube as well. If you just go to my regular main website, which is justinkprim.com, you'll eventually find the way to the YouTube from there and my Instagram and whatever else could be. It's all there with a bunch of
Yeah.
videos and articles and stuff. Um, but yeah,
This has
cutting
been
is
awesome. I've
cutting
been
is hard. Cutting
I
is hard when you have to deal with customers. Like if I could
yeah.
just cut, you know, when we're cutting at home for fun, and by fun I mean to sell our own stones.
Yeah.
That's such a joy. But and cutting for customers can be a joy too, but sometimes when the material is hard to deal with, or sometimes the customer's hard to deal with, or they're just putting some pressure on you that you did, you know, or you're just busy or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm sure the same is for you. You know, you're making jewelry and trying to make everybody happy.
Yeah.
It's not always possible, especially
Well,
because sometimes people come in not happy.
and you're reading clients, and sometimes they've already had a bad experience, and you feel guilty because they had a bad experience.
Yeah.
So now you need to educate them, you need to guide them, and you need to kind of make them feel like you're holding their hand, that you're there for them, and you're going to give them the service that they should have received the first time, or the,
Yeah.
whatever it is, or they're coming directly to you, and you now have the ability to create a lifelong client of
Yeah.
whatever it is. So you've got these two things that you've got to juggle. But to me, I love that. Like, I love those difficult clients who tell me these horror stories that they went to somebody, they had a bad experience. I love hearing those stories because it just makes me better myself. Like,
Yeah.
making sure that, like, I never do what someone was done to.
Have
It
you
just
ever have you ever been one of the horror stories? Like, do you have
No,
any? No, okay, that's good.
no. I haven't been to horror stories. I've told this story online before, which I think is really funny, and you'll get a kick out of this one. So I told the story. I don't know if you know the story, but early in my career, I was working for a jewelry store, and we really didn't do repair work. We did like some like beaded pieces, and I had a client come in with like a little black satchel, like a little drawstring bag that like you would get like anywhere. And she walks to the counter, and she's like, can you help me? I was like, sure. And she puts this like bag, and I can hear it jiggle. So I take out a tray and I put the tray down. And I go, how can I help you? And she dumps out the components that were in the bag onto the tray. And I'm on here. I said, what happened? And she goes, well, it's my husband's fault. And I was like, oh, okay. She threw The client threw her 4-carat diamond ring against her husband's car. It rolled off the hood of the car. The husband didn't know and ran over the ring from concrete.
Oh,
And I don't know how this happened. I don't know, because she didn't have an original report. I'm assuming it was a very included 4-carat. There were like 20 pieces of diamond on this tray
did she want
with
you to
like,
put it back together?
so she asked me if I could fix it. And I'm going through the pieces. I was like, okay, maybe we could recut that one. That's a little big, but you're not going to get a big stone. Like, you're going to get like half a carat out of this. And
Yeah,
she's like, no, no, no. Can't you just glue it back together? And I'm
could
like,
try it. We could try it.
It doesn't really work that way. She goes, but you can use that, like that diamond glue, right? And I was like, diamond glue.
Hmm. New
Hmm.
invention. Maybe she had a patent ready to go.
I So I said to her, I was like, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can really do. I mean, you can call your insurance company and see what they're doing. That was my first thing. Call your insurance company, see what you can do. Second thing is, I was like, I'm so sorry, I can't do more. And she was getting really frustrated that I couldn't just like glue it back together. And I had to explain to her, like, if we could glue it back together, it would need to be like repolished and reformed, and it's not just like putting a vase back
Yeah,
together. And the gold, I think this ring went down the garbage
could
disposal,
be.
and she just created a bigger story. I really do.
Yeah.
I really do.
I saw one stone kind of like that. So, not really the same story, but I got a buddy here who has a shop. He called me. He's like, "Hey, can you do a repair?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay." And I came over there and he showed me this. It's like I think it was an 8-carat sapphire. Not very nice. I mean, like it was pretty included, but I looked at it and I was like, "Whoa, what's up with this stone? It looks really weird." He's like, "Yeah, look with the loop. You're gonna get a surprise." So, okay, it's blue. It's round.
Hmm.
It's like a round mixed cut.
Okay.
Like let's say 25% of this stone was white, like it was chipped. Like I don't know. I can't even explain it because I don't even understand how this happened. But the stone got hit against something, and it sort of
Okay.
like made a chip, but the chip didn't come off. It just lost all of its color somehow. I don't know. Maybe the color zone was on the other side, and they weren't connect. I don't know. It was still on there, very well on there, like, but it was white, and there was a hole in the table, like a huge divot. And so evidently the guy took a ring into a jeweler. I think this is in Bangkok, but I'm not really sure. He took a ring into a jeweler, to get it resized, and it came back like that. And we have no idea what happened. But so he gives it to me, and I'm like, dude, this needs like surgery, like makeover, like plastic surgery, like deep. He's like, yeah, I already told him they're probably going to lose 50% of the stone. I was like, okay, good, because that was accurate. But it started as a round, really a terribly, terribly cut round with super deep, I mean, super heavy inclusions. But we were able to keep, half the stone, turn it into an oval. The color was much better when it was done, but the inclusions were more prominent as well. But they were happy. They saved half their stone, and
Was it a big
it was
stone? Had to have been a
it
big
would start.
stone.
It started as eight. Started as
Oh,
eight,
okay.
and it ended at like 4.1 or something.
Oh, that's still a
So,
good stone.
oh no, yeah, they were. It was over four. That's what they were going for. But I just couldn't imagine what the jeweler. It's like he took a hammer and was just like, I'm gonna resize it with like a hammer. I don't know how you could do that, but that was pretty
There
hardcore.
are, and I emphasize this out there, guys, there are masters who are masters, and there are people who are not masters.
Yeah, somebody
So,
had their stone glued together. That's a
and
bummer too.
oof.
60 unheated paparaja.
Mm.
What kind of cert do they give for that though? It's like it's
Wait, I
glued
had a
in.
60-carat unheat paparaja split in half. While testing it under the microscope, it turned out to be two halves were glued together.
Yeah, I bet the heat from the microscope heated up the glue, and
I'm
yeah,
not
that
laughing, but that's
sucks.
awful.
Oh, that's crazy. That's a crazy story, like there should be a show, a YouTube show of crazy, like I don't know if you've ever seen this one. There's a Tumblr blog that's just like graphic designers who
Oh,
post
yes.
their sort of horror interactions with customers. We should have this for the gem trade. This would be super amusing, just like
Oh, my
photos and
God.
stories of like your worst. But it'd have to be like private, so no customers could see it. But
So we're going to
you
do
know,
that. If you have horror stories, send them to Justin and I, and we're going to share
yeah,
them live on Instagram next time.
that's a pretty
Because
good idea. We could just read
just
read
read the
horror
horror
jewelry.
stories.
They have to be we'll keep them anonymous. I've got one. I'll
Yes,
save it for that time.
save it.
I have to admit I was the horror story one time, but I'll save that
No.
until we read our horror stories.
Okay.
It wasn't my fault. I'll put it there. It wasn't my fault. It was
Happens.
their fault, but sometimes the customer is not happy with what
It's
you
not always your
do.
fault. I mean,
So,
customer dealing with people is tough. So we are about 4 minutes left.
okay.
Is there
So
anything
yeah,
else?
that means 2 hours. We shouldn't go longer. Otherwise, I'm gonna switch into pajamas, and then we can move the phone to the bed, and we'll do like a
A
bedtime
nightcap?
hour, a nightcap. Yeah, I can get the whiskey out. Um,
Well, I mean,
well,
we got some great numbers. I mean, a lot of you
yeah,
showed up, so thank you
nice
so much.
questions.
Great
If you guys
questions.
have more questions, feel free to message either one of us. If they're about cutting, then maybe they should go to me. But um,
Yeah, please. If you got fascinating questions or tool questions, go to Justin. If, come to both of us if you're looking for anything specific, depending on where you are and what you're looking for, contact
I
us and
wanted
see.
I wanted to put it out there. I'm
Yeah.
doing webinars every Wednesday right now because we're all stuck inside. So every Wednesday, I'm presenting a talk, just me. Every
Awesome.
Sunday, under the banner of the school, I'm interviewing different people from the trade. So this Sunday, I'm going to be interviewing Vincent Pardue. We're going to be talking about
I'm going to be
field
there.
gemology stories. The weekend after that, I'm going to be talking to Farouk Hashmi and
Ooh.
Simon Desart. So Farouk's in New York, Simon's here. So we're going to be talking about the state of the gem trade right now, what led up, how's it going with coronavirus, how was it going before coronavirus. So kind of like a gemstone news. And then the weekend after that, it will be with Richard Hughes. So you can find all that info on my website, Justin K. Prim,
Awesome.
along with the YouTube videos and stuff.
Are you doing this on Instagram? Or are you going to do this on Zoom or?
The ones on Wednesday, I'm doing them on Twitch because I do
Okay.
live stream cutting on Twitch, so it was just easy for me to keep them on Twitch. The ones
Okay.
where I interview people, I'm doing them on Zoom because it's better for interviewing
Yeah.
people and yeah, why not? A lot of people are using Zoom, so it's pretty convenient for people, I think. So
Yeah. So
but yeah,
Justin has a lot coming up.
Yeah.
Check on GemologyGeek. I've got
You
3
have a
people
lot coming up too. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a conversation on Monday talking about colored diamonds. On Tuesday, I am talking with Jane, who is a fabulous jewelry designer, who
Cool.
works a lot with tourmalines. And I've got a few others that are like in the pipeline. So
Okay.
I'm trying to, as I do more of these, more people come out and they're like, hey, let's do a talk. I'm like, sure. Like, you
Yeah.
know, you want to do
It's
something?
fun.
It is fun because it just connects us, and I get to learn something that I didn't know. And I'm specifically trying to do talks about things that I don't have the experience, especially with cutting. I've
Yeah.
cut one. I cabbed a stone in college. I don't even know where the ring is. If I ever showed it to the daylight, people would be like, what did you do?
Well, you're gonna,
So
as soon as this is all over, you're gonna be out here
I'm excited.
checking out IGT. So we're waiting for you.
I'm excited.
You can be our first new student whenever we open up again. So I wanted to say one more thing. What was it? Oh yeah, I'm giving a class next week actually. The first time I've tried to do this online. I'm giving a class via Zoom about
Cool.
gemstone design in the software. So this is, and it's
Send
only
me
$9.
the link and I'll post it. Send
Okay.
me the link and
Okay.
I'll post it. I would love to watch it.
It's going to be fun. There's 2 different ones for European time and American time, American and Australian time. So yeah, I'll send it to you. That's going to be cool. I'm hoping to do more classes since we're stuck in here and the school's closed. And, you know, teaching is cool. I like interacting with people that way. So I'm trying to think about new ideas. Oh, I wanted to show this too. I'm working on my mask here. And I wanted to get one that was really blinged out. I'm only halfway there, but you know, when I go out, people can know it goes with the tie. So
I like it. It looks
just
good.
just want to throw that out there. So okay,
Justin,
well, stay cool down in Florida.
Yeah, you as well.
Stay safe.
Yeah. Thank you for this time. This was a lot of fun.
Say hi to your mom. That was we had a great chat in Tucson. That was kind of how this really got connected, was through your mom.
It really did. It really did.
Because she started talking to me about your how you wanted to get into rough and cutting and stuff, and I was like, okay, we can do that.
Yeah.
So
my mom is like my secret weapon in Tucson. People have like gotten to know her. And
she's
like,
great.
She's awesome. She'll walk around Tucson. People will be like, oh, that's Erica's mom. Like, my mom can talk more than I can, so you know it's.
Yeah, and she was rolling right along. Like you wouldn't even know she's not in the trade. She knew all the celebrities. She knew all the faces in the party that we were at. She knew all the stuff. I was like, wow.
She does.
I can't believe you're not working in the trade. So well, thanks to everybody.
Thank you guys. I appreciate
who's hanging out with us. It's fun for 2 hours. Gosh, we're crazy.
Honestly, the number has been like 35 to like 55 for like the last 2 hours.
Cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah, so props to everybody for hanging out with us, and thanks for
being here.
Thank you for being here. We're just having fun.
And if you want to, if we're in a situation for another few weeks, let's do it again. We can talk about.
Let's really do the horror story thing. I think we should collect
do the horror
these.
Stories. Okay.
It's just a good idea. We can call all of our friends, and then whoever submits it. So we'll just put out a call on Instagram. Send us your gem and jewelry horror stories, and we're gonna do a live reading.
We're doing a live. Okay, I'm posting.
You know, like when people read bad tweets about themselves. It'll be like that.
It's gonna be like that.